Snagget, lieutenant of the High Gobapalooza, breathed deeply of the spore-choked air. He willed himself down a rickety series of wooden platform steps towards the cavern's basin and the dense colony of tall and swaying fungi that filled it. Passing the Troggoths guarding the realm gates at the side had already taxed the grot's courage, and the chance to flaunt his authority wasted on the dim-witted biguns. And that was all before entering the Fungal Asylum itself. If Snagget was honest, he hadn't really wanted this task. He'd rather have been back in the realm of the Deadens. The bonehead tribes enjoyed slopping white paint across their faces and capering around with long bones strapped to their backs to form the legs of some arachnid grot hybrid, which the lieutenant had never quite truly understood. Yet King Scragrot had always seemed satisfied with the mischief Snagget made alongside them. The Loon King's summons, however, had been unequivocal.
"Snagget, my lad, you's the only one I can trust with this,"
Scragrot had said.
"I need ya to go get this prophecy for me. The Bad Moon himself told me that."
And that had been that. You didn't argue with the Bad Moon, after all. Snagget hadn't been given directions. Trying to memorize the asylum's layout was futile. The mushrooms moved. The whole strange subrealm did. Navigating here meant hoping you found where you were going before anything found you. Fungi stalks crunched underfoot, forming brief breaks in the living carpet before sprouting back to life. In the rare breaks from the screaming that filled the bleak oubliettes of the asylum, the only sound was Snagget's own shuddering breath. That, and the whispering. Always the whispering. Those prophets and scryers captured from across the mortal realms and rendered into new forms of fungal life by the Loon King's moon on a stick rarely did anything else. Listening to the cacophony invited madness, as the grot creatures who spent their existence tending to the inmates proved. Now it seemed worse than ever, louder, and somehow even more insistent. Hurrying onwards, his breaths turning to multi-hued mould that persisted briefly in the air, Snagget left the mushroom field and entered the dark mouth of a cave tunnel. He slowed as a fungus keeper scuttled overhead from a crack in the tunnel's roof, recognizing through some uncanny sixth sense that it was being watched. The once grot paused. Snagget swallowed, clasping tighter the jagged shard of loonstone that served as both blade and light source, as the creature twisted to look down upon him. It was more mushroom than grot now, peering at him with eyes mounted on long stalks like those of a slug fungus. Pulsating organic growths had spread all over its face and its brow in a grim exaggeration of the Loon King's crown. They sprouted through the creature's skull, distorting it under the guise of parasitic blessings. The attendant cackled, swiftly skittering away into another fissure. With a shiver, Snagget realized it hadn't been alone. More of the half-glimpsed grot things were hurrying between stalks of mushroom seers or along the walls as the scryer shroom's wailing undulated. The lieutenant realized something had happened to rile up the twisted prophets. Something had charged the entire asylum with a febrile energy. Perhaps this was why Scragrot had sent him. Perhaps the Loon King had simply wanted to see whether he'd come back. His momentary unwariness was enough to court disaster. Snagget didn't even have time to shriek as his throat was constricted by creeping tendrils of straggleneck fungus, slithering from the clammy ceiling to snare their next meal. The grot's eyes almost popped from his skull, legs flailing wildly. Thrashing manically, Snagget managed to free an arm, swinging his blade to hack through the choking curtain of fungus. More indigo fingers descended to replace them, secreting acidic juices that sizzled against his skin to begin ingesting him. Snagget. The straggleneck retreated as swiftly as it had come, dropping the grot unceremoniously. Snagget writhed and coughed, nursing new welts where the fungus had eaten at him. It was an effort to open his eyes, the lieutenant managing it only as the dream-like voice called to him again. From the tunnel wall sprouted a pale, scryish room. It looked like it had been planted there for some time, though Snagget was sure this was the first time he'd seen it. Instinctively, the grot knew that this is what he'd been sent to find. Clutching his loon blade tight once more, and trying to avoid looking at the distinctly elven face upon the mushroom's twisted stalk, Snagget ignored the mildew rapidly forming across his squid leather boots as he warily shuffled closer. All the while, the face upon the stalk babbled and drooled silently, swollen tongue lolling out. And eventually it did speak, though, the words soft and almost musical. Across the void etheric, and a light of crooked moon, the heavenly vaults break open to reveal their greatest boon. The dead and the damned search the darkness, making war with the hateful light, but the clammy hand reaches over all, seeking treasures of the bad moon's might. The scryer shroom's face fell slack, its tongue flapping pathetically before that too grew still. Once more Snagget found himself alone, with only the faint screams of fungus seers and his own heavy breathing for company. Even Snagget, possessed of only a base cunning, recognized a warning and an opportunity when he heard it. Scraggerot would be most grateful for news of these treasures, ripe for the taking across the realms, as well as the warning of the surface-dwelling gits being on the move. The gloom spite was calling once more, and beyond that, the promised Everdank, the sweet and sacred gloaming age where moist and clammy shadows swallowed all. Snagget couldn't help but grin. Perhaps he and the boneheads would be bringing in the Everdank sooner than he'd expected. By Jordan Green.